Sample question paper. Created by Couture Foundation. On ICSE's professional program. Group 2 elective paper 7.4. Banking and Insurance Laws and Practice. Lesson 6. Payment and Collection of Checks and Other Negotiable Instruments, NI. Banking Laws and Practice. Lesson 6. Payment and Collection of Checks and Other Negotiable Instruments, NI. Question paper. Total, 100 marks. Part I. Short answer questions, 40 marks. Answer all questions in 2-3 sentences each. 10 questions x 4 marks each. Q1. Define a negotiable instrument according to Section 13 of the Negotiable Instruments Act, 1881. Answer. According to Section 13, a negotiable instrument means a promissory note, bill of exchange, or check payable either to order or to bearer. It is a document that guarantees the payment of a specific amount of money and is transferable from one person to another by delivery or endorsement. Q2. What is a promissory note, as defined under Section 4 of the Act? Answer. A promissory note is an instrument in writing, not being a banknote or a currency note, containing an unconditional undertaking, signed by the maker, to pay a certain sum of money only to, or to the order of, a certain person, or to the bearer of the instrument. It involves two parties, the maker, debtor, and the payee, creditor. Q3. Explain the term, holder in due course, and one condition required to attain this status. Answer. A holder in due course is a person who possesses a negotiable instrument for consideration, in good faith, and before its maturity. One essential condition is that the holder must have obtained the instrument without having sufficient cause to believe that any defect existed in the title of the person from whom he derived his title. Q4. Describe check truncation system, CTS, and its primary objective in modern banking. Answer. CTS is an image-based clearing system where the physical movement of the check is stopped, truncated, at the presenting bank, and an electronic image is transmitted to the paying bank. Its primary objective is to speed up the collection of checks, reduce the scope for loss in transit, and lower the overall cost of transactions. Q5. What are days of grace, and how do they affect the maturity of a bill of exchange? Answer. Days of grace are 3 extra days added to the date of maturity of a bill of exchange or promissory note that is not payable on demand. The instrument becomes legally due for payment only on the last day of these grace days. If the last day is a public holiday, the instrument is due on the preceding business day. Q6. Distinguish between endorsement in blank and endorsement in full. Answer. In an endorsement in blank, the endorser signs their name only, making the instrument payable to the bearer. In an endorsement in full, the endorser adds a direction to pay the amount to, or to the order of, a specific person, thereby converting the instrument into one payable to order. Q7. Define a check, as per Section 6 of the Negotiable Instruments Act. Answer. A check is defined as a bill of exchange drawn on a specified banker and not expressed to be payable otherwise than on demand. It specifically includes the electronic image of a truncated check and a check in the electronic form. Q8. What is noting, under Section 99, and when is it practiced? Answer. Noting is the formal recording by a notary public of the fact that a bill of exchange or promissory note has been dishonored by non-acceptance or non-payment. It is practiced immediately after dishonor to create authentic evidence of the refusal to pay or accept the instrument. Q9. List 2 circumstances under which a paying banker must refuse payment of a check despite having sufficient funds. Answer. A banker must refuse payment if they receive a stop payment instruction from the drawer or if they receive formal notice of the drawer's death, insolvency, or insanity. Payment must also be refused if a court issues a garnishee order attaching the customer's funds. Q10. What constitutes material alteration in a negotiable instrument, and what is its legal effect? Answer. A material alteration is any change in the instrument that alters its legal character or the liabilities of the parties, such as changing the date, sum payable, or time of payment without consent. The legal effect is that it renders the instrument void against all parties who did not consent to the alteration, unless the alteration was made to carry out the common intention of the original parties. Part 2. Essay-type questions, 40 marks. Answer any 5 of the following questions in 200-300 words each. 5 questions x 8 marks each. Q1. Discuss the role and statutory duties of a paying banker regarding the payment of customer checks. Answer. A paying banker is the institution upon whom a check is drawn and who is tasked with honoring the customer's mandate. The primary duty of a paying banker is to pay the customer's checks provided there are sufficient funds and no legal bars. This duty is not absolute, it is contingent upon the check being properly drawn. The banker must verify the signature of the drawer against the specimen signature on record. If a signature is forged, the banker cannot charge the customer's account as there is no valid mandate. Statutory duties also include verifying the apparent tenor of the instrument, ensuring it is not stale, older than 3 months, or post-dated. The banker must also check for material alterations. If an alteration is visible, the banker must ensure it is authenticated by the drawer. Furthermore, the banker has a duty to honor checks in the order they are presented. If the banker wrongfully dishonors a check despite having sufficient funds and a valid mandate, they are liable to compensate the drawer for any loss or damage to their reputation. Finally, the banker must stop payment if they receive a clear stop payment instruction, notice of the customer's death, insolvency, or if a court issues a garnishee order. Q2. Explain the different types of negotiable instruments recognized under the Act of 1881, highlighting their unique characteristics. Answer. The Negotiable Instruments Act, 1881, primarily recognizes three types of instruments: promissory notes, bills of exchange, and checks. Promissory note, Section 4. This is an unconditional written promise made by one person, the maker, to pay a certain sum of money to another, the payee. It involves only two parties and does not require acceptance, as the maker is the primary debtor. Bill of exchange, Section 5. This is an unconditional order in writing, signed by the maker, drawer, directing a certain person, drawee, to pay a certain sum of money. It involves three parties, the drawer, the drawee, and the payee. A bill must be accepted by the drawee before they become liable for payment. Check, Section 6. A check is a specific type of bill of exchange drawn on a specified banker and is always payable on demand. Unique characteristics include the requirement of a banker as the drawee and the applicability of crossing, which is not used for bills or notes. All these instruments share the characteristics of negotiability, meaning they are transferable by delivery or endorsement, and a holder in due course acquires a title free from the defects of the previous holder. Q3. Analyze the implications of dishonor of checks for insufficiency of funds under Section 138, including the prescribed penalties. Answer. Section 138 of the Negotiable Instruments Act was introduced to instill confidence in the banking system by criminalizing the dishonor of checks due to insufficiency of funds. When a check is returned unpaid with the remark, funds insufficient, or exceeds arrangement, it constitutes a criminal offense, provided specific procedural requirements are met. First, the check must have been issued for the discharge of a legally enforceable debt or liability. Second, the holder must present the check within its validity period. If returned, the holder must give a written notice to the drawer within 30 days of receiving the return memo. The drawer is then given 15 days to make the payment. If the drawer fails to pay within this grace period, the cause of action arises, and a criminal complaint can be filed within 1 month. The penalties prescribed are severe: imprisonment for a term which may extend to 2 years, or a fine which may extend to twice the amount of the check, or both. This section acts as a strong deterrent against the casual issuance of checks without maintaining adequate balances. Q4. Describe the process and importance of endorsements in the negotiation of instruments. Answer. Endorsement is the process of signing one's name on the back or face of a negotiable instrument, or on a slip of paper called an allonge, attached to it, for the purpose of transferring the rights therein to another person. Under Section 15, the person signing is the endorser, and the person to whom the instrument is transferred is the endorsee. The process can take several forms. Blank endorsement, the endorser simply signs their name, making the instrument payable to the bearer. Full endorsement, the endorser specifies the person to whom the money is to be paid. Restrictive endorsement, this restricts further negotiation, e.g., pay to A only. The importance of endorsement lies in its role in the negotiation of order instruments. While bearer instruments can be transferred by mere delivery, order instruments require endorsement followed by delivery. Endorsement provides a clear chain of title, allowing the endorsee to sue in their own name and potentially become a holder in due course. It facilitates the free flow of credit in the economy by allowing these instruments to act as a substitute for currency. Q5. Detail the protection available to a paying banker under Sections 85 and 89 of the Negotiable Instruments Act. Answer. The Negotiable Instruments Act, 1881, provides specific statutory protections to a paying banker to shield them from liability when they make payments in due course, even if there are underlying defects like forgeries or alterations that are not apparent. Section 85, Protection in case of checks. Section 85 primarily deals with the banker's liability regarding forged endorsements. Under Section 85, 1. If a check payable to order purports to be endorsed by or on behalf of the payee, the drawee, banker, is discharged by payment in due course. This means the bank is not bound to verify the genuineness of the payee's or endorsee's signature. Since a banker cannot possibly know the signatures of all persons in the world, the law protects them as long as the endorsement appears to be regular. Section 85, 2, extends this protection to bearer checks, stating that a banker is discharged by payment in due course to the bearer, regardless of any endorsement, whether in full or blank, appearing thereon, and notwithstanding that any such endorsement purports to restrict or exclude further negotiation. Section 89, Protection in case of material alteration. Section 89 provides protection when an instrument has been materially altered but the alteration is not apparent. If a check or bill has been altered, for example, changing the amount from 1,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees, in such a sophisticated manner that the change cannot be detected by reasonable scrutiny, The banker who pays it according to its apparent tenor is protected. The payment is deemed to be a payment in due course, and the banker can debit the customer's account for the amount paid. However, for this protection to apply, the banker must have acted in good faith and without negligence. If the alteration is visible to the naked eye, such as overwriting or chemical erasure that leaves a mark, the bank loses this statutory protection and will be held liable for the loss. In summary, these sections ensure that as long as a banker acts with reasonable care, follows standard banking procedures, and pays an instrument that looks technically correct on its face, they are legally protected from being penalized for frauds they could not have reasonably detected. Q6. Explain the concept of crossing of checks and its significance in ensuring secure payments. Answer. Crossing is a unique feature of checks where two parallel transverse lines are drawn across the face of the check, with or without words like, and company, or, not negotiable. The primary significance of crossing is that it acts as an instruction to the paying banker not to pay the check over the counter in cash. Instead, the payment must be made through a banking channel, specifically, into the bank account of the holder. There are two main types. General crossing, two parallel lines. The bank must pay it to any banker. Special crossing, the name of a specific banker is included between the lines. The paying bank must pay it only to the banker named in the crossing. Crossing provides a high level of security. Since the money must be credited to a bank account, it leaves a paper trail that makes it easy to trace the person who received the funds. This discourages the theft of checks, as a thief cannot easily encash a crossed check without a bank account, which is subject to KYC, Know Your Customer, norms. It protects the drawer by ensuring that the money reaches the intended recipient or, at the very least, a traceable party. Part 3, Case Study, 20 marks. Read the following scenario and answer the 5 questions that follow. 5 questions x 4 marks each. Scenario. A company director, Mr. Sharma, issues a check for 50,000 rupees to a vendor. Before the check is presented, Mr. Sharma passes away. Meanwhile, the vendor endorses the check to a third party, Mr. Verma, for a lawful debt. When Mr. Verma presents the check to the bank has received notice of Mr. Sharma's death. Additionally, the check has a visible correction in the date field which is not authenticated by a full signature. Questions. Q1. Bank's obligation. Should the paying bank honor the check after receiving notice of the drawer's death? Justify your answer based on lesson 6. Answer. The paying bank should not honor the check because the notice of the drawer's death acts as a revocation of the bank's authority to pay. Once the banker receives formal notice of the customer's demise, the duty to pay terminates immediately, and any subsequent payment would be considered unauthorized. Q2. Signature authority. If the check had been issued by a director of a company, a separate legal entity, would the bank's decision change regarding the death of the signer? Answer. Yes, the bank's decision would change because a company is a separate legal entity with perpetual succession. Since the check is drawn on the company's account and not the director's personal account, the death of the authorized signatory does not terminate the bank's mandate to pay the company's debts. Q3. Material alteration. Evaluate the legal standing of the check considering the unauthenticated correction in the date field. Answer. The check loses its legal standing because an unauthenticated correction in the date field constitutes a material alteration. Under the Negotiable Instruments Act, any alteration that changes the legal effect of the instrument, like the date of payment, renders the instrument void unless the drawer has validated the change with a full signature. Q4. Holder in due course. Does Mr. Verma qualify as a holder in due course if he took the check for consideration without knowledge of any defects? Answer. Mr. Verma does not qualify as a holder in due course because the instrument had a visible, unauthenticated alteration at the time he took it. To attain this status, the holder must take the instrument in good faith and without sufficient cause to believe any defect exists. A visible, uncertified correction constitutes notice of a defect. Q5. Liability. If the bank accidentally pays the forged or altered instrument, can they recover the money from the person who received it? Answer. If a bank pays a materially altered instrument where the alteration was visible, they generally cannot recover the money from the recipient and cannot debit the customer's account. However, if the payment was made in due course, because the alteration was not apparent, Section 89, the bank is protected and the loss falls on the drawer or the party responsible for the negligence. Trophy Gold Medal Classical Building Woman Student. Test yourself. Q1. Explain the features of a negotiable instrument. Answer. A negotiable instrument is a specialized document that guarantees the payment of a specific amount of money. Its primary features include transferability. It can be easily transferred from one person to another. If it is a bearer instrument, it moves by mere delivery. If it is an order instrument, it moves via endorsement and delivery. Title of the holder. A holder in due course, who takes the instrument in good faith and for consideration acquires a clear title. This means they can hold a better title than the person they received it from, provided they were unaware of any previous defects. Unconditional order promise. The instrument must contain an unconditional promise, as in a promissory note, or an unconditional order, as in a bill of exchange or check, to pay money. Any condition attached to the payment renders the instrument non-negotiable. Written and signed, it must be in writing and signed by the maker or drawer to be legally valid. Certainty of amount and party. The sum of money to be paid must be certain, and the parties involved, drawer, drawee, and payee, must be clearly identified or identifiable. Right to sue. The holder of the instrument has the legal right to sue in their own name in case of dishonor, without needing to give notice of the assignment to the debtor. Q2. What is the role and duties of a paying bank? Answer. The paying bank, or drawee bank, is the bank where the drawer maintains their account and upon which the check is drawn. Its primary role is to act as the custodian of the customer's funds and honor their valid mandates. Duty to honor checks. Under Section 31, a banker is bound to honor checks drawn by a customer provided there are sufficient funds and the check is properly presented during banking hours. Verification of mandate. The bank must verify the drawer's signature against the specimen's signature on file. Payment on a forged signature is not a payment in due course and cannot be debited from the customer's account. Checking the instrument's validity. The bank must ensure the check is not stale, over 3 months old, post-dated, or materially altered. Any visible alteration must be authenticated by the drawer's full signature. Compliance with crossings. If a check is crossed, the paying bank must ensure it is paid only to a banker, general crossing, or the specific banker named, special crossing. Duty of confidentiality. While processing payments, the bank must maintain the secrecy of the customer's account details. Refusal of payment. The bank has a duty to stop payment upon receiving a stop payment notice, notice of death, insolvency, or a court-issued garnishee order. Q3. Describe about Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. Answer. The Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 is the primary legal framework in India governing promissory notes, bills of exchange, and checks. It was enacted during the British era to provide a standardized legal structure for commercial credit instruments, facilitating trade by ensuring these documents could be treated as liquid assets. Scope. It defines the legal nature of instruments, the liabilities of the parties involved, drawer, maker, acceptor, endorser, and the rules for their transfer, negotiation. Key sections. The Act defines a promissory note in Section 4, a bill of exchange in Section 5, and a check in Section 6. It also details the holder in due course, Section 9, and the payment in due course, Section 10. Protection for bankers. It provides statutory protections to bankers, Sections 85, 89, and 131, who act in good faith and without negligence, allowing the banking system to function efficiently without the fear of being liable for undetectable frauds. Criminal provisions. A significant amendment in 1988 introduced Chapter 17, Section 138, which criminalized the dishonor of checks due to insufficiency of funds, aiming to enhance the credibility of checks in business transactions. The Act has evolved over time, including amendments to accommodate electronic checks and the check truncation system, CTS. Q4. How an instrument becomes a forged instrument. Answer. An instrument is considered forged when it has been fraudulently made or altered with the intent to deceive and cause wrongful loss or gain. Forgery in negotiable instruments typically occurs in 2 ways. Forged signature of the drawer. This is the most common form, where a person signs the drawer's name on a check without authority. Since there is no valid mandate from the customer, the bank has no authority to pay. Even if the forgery is so perfect that it cannot be detected, the bank is generally held liable because it is expected to know its customer's signature. Forged endorsements. This occurs when a person signs the name of a payee or an endorsee to wrongfully transfer the title of the instrument. However, under Section 85, a paying banker is protected if they pay an order check that purports to be endorsed by the payee, as the bank is not expected to know the signatures of third parties. Material alteration. If a person unauthorizedly changes the amount, date, or name of the payee to benefit themselves, the instrument becomes a forged altered instrument. If the alteration is apparent, the instrument is void. If the bank pays such an instrument where the forgery is visible, it loses its statutory protection and cannot charge the customer's account. Q5. What are the implications of dishonor of a check? Answer. The dishonor of a check has serious legal, financial, and reputational implications for the drawer. Civil liability. The holder of the check can file a civil suit for the recovery of the amount mentioned in the check, along with interest and costs incurred during the legal process. Criminal liability. Section 138. If a check is dishonored due to insufficiency of funds, or exceeds arrangement, it is a criminal offense. The drawer can face imprisonment for up to 2 years, a fine up to twice the check amount, or both. Procedural consequences. For a criminal case to hold, the payee must send a legal notice to the drawer within 30 days of dishonor. If the drawer fails to pay within 15 days of receiving the notice, a complaint can be filed in court. Banking penalties. Banks often levy check return charges on both the drawer and the payee. Frequent dishonors can lead to the bank closing the customer's account or blacklisting them from future checkbook facilities. Credit score impact. Dishonor of a check can negatively impact the drawer's credit history and CIBIL score, making it difficult to obtain loans or credit cards in the future. It also damages the business reputation and trust between the drawer and the payee. Q6. Explain the role and duties of a collecting bank. Answer. A collecting bank, or presenting bank, is the one that receives a check from its customer for the purpose of collecting funds from the paying bank and crediting the customer's account. Agent for collection. The bank acts as an agent. Its primary duty is to present the instrument for payment within a reasonable time. Any delay that causes loss to the customer, e.g., the drawer becomes insolvent in the interim, makes the bank liable. Due diligence. KYC. The bank must exercise reasonable care when opening an account. If a bank collects a stolen check for a person who opened an account with fake credentials without proper KYC, the bank may lose its statutory protection. Verification of instruments. The collecting bank must examine the check for any apparent defects, material alterations, or irregular endorsements before accepting it for collection. Statutory protection. Section 131. The Act provides protection to a collecting banker against conversion claims by the true owner, if the bank collected the payment in good faith and without negligence for a customer. Notice of dishonor. If a check is returned unpaid, the collecting bank must inform the customer immediately and return the physical check, or the return memo in CTS, so the customer can take legal action. Q7. What do you mean by dishonor of a check? What penalties are prescribed for dishonor of a check? Also explain the key reasons for dishonoring of a check. Answer. Dishonor occurs when a bank refuses to pay the amount of a check to the payee when presented for payment. Key reasons for dishonor. Insufficiency of funds, the most common reason, where the account balance is less than the check amount. Signature mismatch, the signature on the check does not match the bank's records. Stop payment, the drawer instructs the bank not to honor the specific check. Stale or post-dated check, the check is presented after 3 months of its date or before the date mentioned. Account closed frozen, the drawer has closed the account or a court tax authority has frozen it. Material alteration, unauthenticated changes in the amount or name. Q8. What is the concept of check truncation system? What are its benefits and main highlights of a CTS system? Also explain the process of CTS with suitable examples, wherever necessary. Answer. Concept. Check truncation system, CTS, is an image-based clearing process where the physical movement of the check is replaced by electronic images and data. Instead of sending the physical paper check from the presenting bank to the paying bank, the presenting bank truncates, stops the check and sends its digital image. Process. 1. The customer deposits the check at the presenting bank. 2. The presenting bank captures the electronic image and microdata. 3. This data is transmitted securely through a clearing house to the paying bank. 4. The paying bank verifies the image and authorizes payment. Main highlights. CTS uses grayscale or color images to ensure all security features, like watermarks or alterations, are visible. It uses a secure digital signature to prevent data tampering during transit. Benefits. 1. Speed. It reduces the clearing cycle from T+2 or T+3 days to T+1 next day. 2. Safety. It eliminates the risk of checks getting lost or tampered with during physical transit. 3. Cost effective. It removes the logistical costs associated with moving thousands of paper checks across cities. 4. Efficiency. Banks do not need to physically store or transport checks, leading to better operational efficiency and faster reconciliation of accounts. Thanks to learn with us. You can find more study content on our website couture.com.